What's up? This is Watu-K99 recording for New York Sports Wicker Media. Today we're going to do our first New York Mets video. And so this is a pretty exciting time to be a Mets fan right now. They've got a 10.5 game lead currently in the National League East. Now they're currently in the middle of a 4-game series against the LA Dodgers, probably the other best team in the National League right now. Mets lost the first game last night 2-0. But I gotta tell you, going into the series, I'm feeling excited, and even if this series doesn't turn out great, it doesn't take away from the great start the Mets have had. But this team is coming off a 6-0 homestand against division opponents. They beat some teams that are not doing so well right now before they head out to play some tough teams out in California. So I'm checking social media, and one of my friends messages me and says, "Can you believe what happened about Lindor?" And I'm thinking, well, what happened? Francisco Lindor, Mets shortstop? What happened? I looked it up, and he apparently jammed his finger in a door that afternoon and was not going to be able to play the first game in Los Angeles. So the shortstop, who has a 10-game RBI streak, second longest in Mets history, he's had a really good second season, one of our two really marquee offensive players. He's not going to play against the LA Dodgers. The Mets have had a lot of weird moments in their history. My memory goes back to pretty much the late '80s, and I have many memories that are just crazy between moments on the field and moments off the field. But I got to thinking to myself, so is this the most ridiculous injury the Mets have ever had in terms of off the field? And I went back through recent Mets history, and I am ranking the 5 most ridiculous Mets injuries, not including Lindor. So let's compare those injuries to what happened to Francisco Lindor jamming his finger in a hotel door, in between 2 double doors. Apparently what he said, he closed one door, and the other door was closing unbeknownst to him, and it jammed his finger. I'm like, dude, you make $340 million. Can't you hire somebody to open your doors for you? I don't know. So here's a couple of weird injuries the Mets have had in their history. So number 5 is going to be Brandon Nimmo. This was in 2019. He had to miss a couple of days of spring training because he got food poisoning from some undercooked chicken that he had cooked himself. He made chicken, made sweet potatoes. He said there was a little herb and garlic glaze on top. Cooked it in the oven, 400 degrees, 20 minutes, everything looked good. And he was so proud of himself, he sent it to his wife, to Mrs. Chelsea Nimmo. And he wound up throwing up for the next 24 hours, missing 2 days. So that's number 5. That is pretty ridiculous, I'd have to say. Number 4 is Steven Matz, our former left-handed pitcher. During his rookie season of 2015, fine year in Mets history, he had to miss a couple of days because he slept wrong on a couch. He was sleeping on a friend's couch. I don't know why he needed a couch. I mean, he's from Long Island. I mean, couldn't he have stayed at home? But he slept apparently on his wrong side and woke up with back discomfort, and he missed his next scheduled start. Just from sleep. That's how you know you're getting old, is when you get hurt while you're sleeping. And this kid was in his early 20s at the time. I mean, how does that happen? So that was one that was pretty ridiculous. Number 3, this one is infamous in Mets history. I'm going back to 2006, maybe the best Mets team I've seen up to that point in my lifetime. I put them over the Bobby Valentine Mets, the 2015 Mets, this year's team, we'll see. But that 2006 team was special. They were dominant. And one of the most dominant phases or facets of that team was their bullpen. And Dwayner Sanchez, number 50, had come over that season, and he was as dominant of an 8th-inning reliever as you could want. He may not have been Mariano Rivera in 1996, but he was pretty reliable. So it was July 31st, 2006, the day of the trade deadline. Now, it's the early part of that particular day. The baseball trade deadline is on July 31st, and it also happens to be my birthday. So I was turning 25 years old that day, as it turns out. So Sanchez met his cousin and a friend. They were in Miami, and they decided about 1:44 in the morning that they were in the mood for some Dominican food. I don't know about you. I always wake up about 1:30 in the morning, just craving some good Dominican food. I don't know, maybe a good dish of pasta that or a little chicken parm that always works for me too. But these guys were in the mood for Dominican food, and while they were on 95, it was a Crown Victoria car that was being operated by a drunk driver, crossed 3 lanes, sideswiped the taxi cab. Sanchez and his friends were in a cab, and the resulting impact wound up in Sanchez separating his shoulder and missing the rest of the season. And in a panic, the Mets traded their right fielder, Xavier Nady, for Roberto Hernandez, who's just another middle reliever, and Oliver Perez, who would have his few moments, but ultimately is one of the most maddening starting pitchers that you could ever have on your team. So that, that particular one, it's not embarrassing, but the absurdity of it and the impact that it left on this franchise was absolutely damaging. To lose Sanchez, if they didn't lose Sanchez, who knows how far they really could have gone. Number 2, we're going to talk about Bobby Ojeda. We're going to go back to 1988. It was in September. He was deciding he wanted to do a little yard work around his home, and he chose to use an electric hedge clipper. And he wound up cutting off the tip of his left middle finger, his pitching hand. He somehow, with an electric hedge clipper, cut off his middle finger. His middle finger. How do you cut off a hedge clipper? Were the grips loose? I mean, were they could, he wasn't using them because it was electric? I mean, was it still, I don't even know how these things work, but yeah, so that finished him for the rest of the season, and the Mets lost a brutal 7-game series to the Dodgers that, to be honest, they really should have won. And if they didn't lose Ojeda, there might have been a good chance they would have won that series. We'll never know. So that's number 2. And, before I get to, I'm just going to give you number 1 right now. Number 1 is Vince Coleman, who is just infamous in Mets lore as being one of the worst free agent signings that they've ever had. They brought this guy in as an arch rival from all those years in St. Louis. They had just let Darryl Strawberry walk away in free agency, and they figured they would go with speed. Oh, we're going to steal 40 bases every year. He's going to steal 50 bases a year. Nobody's going to miss Darryl. Well, Vince Coleman became known for 2 things: throwing firecrackers in the Mets dugout, and actually into a group of fans, I believe, as well. But one day in the, I think it was in spring, I don't know if it was in spring training, it was early in the season though, he got some new golf clubs. And apparently Mr. Coleman had not spent a lot of time golfing before, because he didn't understand the concept that you kind of don't want people around. You want a little bit of space when you're swinging a club. Well, who happens to walk by just as Mr. Coleman's testing out his 3-wood? Dwight Eugene Gooden, Dr. K, number 16, the franchise. Coleman takes a swing, he hits Gooden straight in the right shoulder, and Doc had to miss his next scheduled start. Does it get more ridiculous than that? Playing golf in the dugout, practicing clubs, and you hit your ace pitcher and knock him out? Just absolutely ridiculous. Vince Coleman may go down for a franchise that has had some brutal trades and some horrific free agent signings. It is hard to think of one that is unabashedly bad as Vince Coleman. But I'm going to give you one more. This is going to be our little honorable mention embarrassing injury. And I'm going to throw out a player that you might not have thought of that something like this happened to. I'm going to give you number 48, Jacob deGrom. That's right. Winner of several Cy Young Awards, Rookie of the Year, one of the best pitchers in baseball when he's on the mound. Well, here's a little story. This goes back to 2013. This is the year before deGrom made his debut as a New York Met. So a week before spring training, deGrom, out of his generous spirit, decided he was going to help his friend who had a farm and a lot of animals. Jacob deGrom's assignment that day was to help castrate a calf. I'll just let that sink in for a moment. I would like to know what his compensation would have been for that. I mean, for what it would pay me to get me to help castrate a calf or any other animal for that matter, it would have to be rather substantial. So Jacob is helping to castrate the calf, and the cow kicked and broke Jacob's left ring finger. Thankfully, that is his non-pitching hand. He was able to pitch through it. But yeah, only the Mets could have pitchers who get fingers or different body parts broken because they're trying to castrate an animal, and the animal, oddly enough, didn't take too well to what was going on at the moment. So there you have it. My opinion: the 5 most embarrassing injuries in Mets history. Lindor might be up there. Well, we'll see if he comes back tonight. He should. So I will be back soon with more content. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll talk to you soon.